So now let's talk about system-specific security policy. While both EISP and ISSP, they might be more formal, but the system-specific security policy, sometimes you might think that it's not really a policy, but it is, because it looks like a procedure to some reader. So they might not think it's a policy, they might just think it's a procedure. So they may often function as a standard or procedures to be used when configuring or maintaining a information system. The system-specific security policy can be separated into managerial guidance and as well as technical guidance. It could be in one document or it could be in a single unified document. Now let's look at the managerial guidance for system-specific security policy. So the managerial guidance is created by management to guide, help implement and configure the technology that is being used in the organization. It can apply to any technology that affects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of that information. And also it could inform the technologies of what the management is intended for that system to do. For instance, like sometimes you might say, okay, for firewall, it's something, maybe it's a technical documentation. But in order to maybe configure the firewall, that could be the technical part. But in order to say, okay, we need to have a firewall and also we need to implement a firewall, that's a guideline that the management needs to be kind of concerned to. So if we don't have some kind of a managerial guidance, that technical person can actually configure the firewall however he or she wants to without looking at the company's intent. So again, that's why we need to have a managerial guidance in place. Normally, when the managers are defining the managerial specification, they are working with the system administrator in implementing the managerial policy. Each type of equipment normally has its own type of policy. Like for example, if we want to configure Windows 7, configure the local security policy settings, we can do it in two different ways. One, access control list, the other one is configuration rules. Access control list could include the user access list, matrices, and capability table that govern the rights and privilege for the users. A capability table specifies which subject and object that user or group can access. These specifications are normally complex matrices rather than simple lists or tables. Sometimes the capability tables, we call them user profile, or sometimes you might call them user policies. Mostly ACAs enable administrator to restrict access according to the user, computer, time, even the particular file and duration. In general, ACA can regulate who can use the system, what authorized user can access, when authorized user can access the system, and where authorized user can access the system from, and also how authorized user can access the system. So these are basically general ACA rules that can be accomplished by the system administrator. When we are talking about what authorized users can access, we are talking about restricting what a specific user can access. For example, a specific printer, a specific file, or something like that. The administrator can assign access such as read, write, execute, and delete. So based on those type of access, the user can access those files or maybe printer or whatever the administrator wants the user to have access of. In here, you can actually see the list of group that have been defined. This is on the Windows console, which groups they have been defined, and also shows that the user accounts that have been defined for these systems. And so each of them has basically different access levels. So administrator, they can have complete and unrestricted access to the computer domain, versus as guest have the same access as member of the users group by default, except the guest account, which is further restricted. So we have actually defined various groups here, and then we can define users within these groups. So in here also the Linux, you can see in here we can see updates to the user settings. We want to select the groups that the user will be member of. We can update that. And also the password information, you know, if you want to enable the password to expire, you know, within few days or something like that, you can put that in there. So this is basically the Linux operating system access control. Now let's look at configurational rule. Configuration rules are basically instructional codes that helps the execution of the system when the information is actually passing through it. Rule policies are more specific to the operation of a system than the ACLs, and they may not, or they may directly deal with the users. Many security systems require specific configuration script telling the system what action to do on each set of information that they process, such as firewalls, for example, if you look at the firewall. Also intrusion detection servers and proxy servers. So this is a firewall configuration rules, which is actually monitoring the firewall through the checkpoints. So in here we have the action, which specifies whether the packet from the source is being accepted or dropped. In this case, the number 1 is dropped, and number 2 is dropped, number 3 is dropped, number 4 is accepted. Also in the track, which specifies whether the processing of a specific packet is being written to the system log. So some of them has been written and some of them hasn't been. Now let's look at combining the system specific policies. Many organizations can create a single document combining elements of both management guidance and technical specification documents. This document can be a little bit confusing to the users of the policy, but it is very practical to have this guidance from both perspectives. This document should carefully articulate the required action for each procedure that has been described in terms of technical and managerial terms. Normally, the system admin takes the managerial specification and then also print or export the detail of system configuration and combines them together and then it stores them as combination of sys-SPS document. This will help the external review and audit of the specification implementation guidance as well, because now everything is in one document. This includes this part of this chapter. In the next part, we will actually look at guidelines for effective policy development and implementation. Okay, see you in the next part.